Number 69, authorizing an additional homestead exemption in East Baton Rouge Parish pursuant to Louisiana Constitution Article 7, Section 21, for property that is owned and occupied by a first responder as defined by the constitutional provision, and providing notice of the adoption of this exemption to the assessor. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Yes, sir. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Jake Morgan, Baton Rouge Professional Firefighters Association. I want to speak in favor of this. This obviously would be a homestead exemption tax break for first responders that work and live in the parish. So live in East Baton Rouge Parish, service East Baton Rouge Parish. Surrounding parishes around East Baton Rouge Parishes have already implemented this. I think this would be a great thing for our first responders, and ask for your favorable passage.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll go to council.
Please.
Okay. Councilman Hurst.
Hey, I've been in favor of this since day one, but I would ask that Reginald Broomfield stand up, Adam Smith stand up, Fred Rayford stand up, anybody else from the Department of Public Works, Rachel Lambert, wherever you are, Trina, if you're here. These are the men and the women that are truly on the front lines, that clear the roads, the drainages, that unclog the pipes, deal with the overflowing sewers, and we never consider them first responders. And my appeal, the last time this came up, which will also be my appeal today, is that the police can't make it down the road if they don't do their job to clear it first. During COVID, they didn't get hazard pay because they weren't considered first responders, but had to show up every day to make sure the city parish had what it needed to survive in terms of keeping our buildings open, keeping our city moving forward, to ensure that the mayor could make her public speeches and that City Hall was operable to be able to notify the citizens of the parish about where we were during COVID, during the flood, during hurricanes. So I ask that you consider them to be first responders, and I want to bring whoever, parish attorney or whoever HR that needs to come up to be able to verify that, but they need to be included in this property exemption. Y'all fellas, thank y'all so much. Have a seat. But whoever needs to come to the mic that can determine if they'll be considered first responders or not, that determines how I move forward with my vote. I don't know if it's HR, somebody, anybody,
Parish
everybody
attorney.
screen. Parish attorney.
Hey, there's an attorney from the assessor's office here.
Okay. An attorney for the assessor's office. Let's go.
Councilman Hurst, I did some research. According to my research, the definition is very clear. It only covers police, fire, EMS, and communications people for those departments. It does not cover other people. They are enumerated in the paragraph. I spoke to the assessor's office in numerous parishes. That is how they determine who fits under that bill. Every assessor's office that I spoke to that passed an ordinance only uses it for police, fire, EMS, and those communications districts. That was Lafayette, Jefferson, St. Charles, New Orleans, Ascension, and Livingston.
So is that a law or best practice? That's what I want to know. It's two different things. I don't care what they use it as. I want to know, can we use it as an opportunity for DPW?
My legal opinion is no, you can only use the people who are listed in that specific law, and it's very specific. And it lists peace officer, which means sheriff, police officer, or other person deputized. It goes on to say fire protection personnel, individuals with emergency medical services personnel, and the law goes on, but it does not cover DPW workers.
So Courtney, can you come to the mic, please? Do we have the ability to create an ordinance at the local level that would then allow DPW to have the same privileges that what she described as first responders would be?
My initial impression is that we probably won't be able to, because I don't know if adding another classification.
Normally, I didn't have to say first responders. I want to say DPW gets the same thing that they get. Can I create an ordinance here that does that?
My first impression is no, but we would have to look into it.
So if we can do it, I'd like to introduce the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Councilwoman Adams?
There we go. So I've had discussions with our first responders in the parish and let them know where I am on this. And my problem with this this piece of legislation, this constitutional amendment, is that it's not equitable. For me to vote for this, it's for me to say that I value our first responders who work inside the parish and live inside the parish more than I value those who live in the surrounding parishes. It's also for me to say that I value first responders who are property owners inside the parish more than I value those who, for whatever reason, do not own property in the parish. Maybe they're not able to afford to own property. It could be a single mom renting an apartment, working as a dispatcher with several children. This is essentially, it's a pay increase, but it's not applied equally across. And I've had police officers tell me that there are very specific reasons why they live outside the parish, because when they get off their shift, they want to be outside of the community that they police. You have firefighters, you have people who are first responders who live in surrounding parishes because that's where their families that's where their family's property is. That's where they're close to friends or their church. There are a lot of reasons why people live where they live. But when you're a first responder in East Baton Rouge Parish, I value all of these people equally, and it's critical that we have, I think it's more important that we have tax dollars flowing into the parish so that we can pay all of our first responders well and as they deserve to be paid, rather than have tax policy that incentivizes people to take an action that may not be what's best for themselves or their family. So I think I'm on record as being very supportive over and over again of our first responders, but this to me is just not good tax policy, and so this is not something that I can support.
Councilwoman Banks?
Would Angie come up, please? Thank you. I was just wondering, had you had an opportunity to review this agenda item in terms of hard numbers regarding the number of first responders that would benefit and what would be the loss and impact to city parish?
So yes, ma'am, we did survey a bunch of different organizations and companies within East Baton Rouge Parish that we think have employees that meet this criterion could be eligible. So that was over all the fire districts throughout the parish. We called the Baker Police, Zachary Police, Wildlife and Fisheries, State Police, Acadian Ambulance, and EMS based on the definition of what we deemed eligible. And then we did different qualifications, like 100% qualified, 75, 50, and 25. Mm-hmm. So the biggest impact is 1.2 million. And when we were discussing this with
dollars?
Yes, ma'am. When we were discussing this with the assessor, you're the governing body of this entire parish. So you're exempting it for all taxing jurisdictions. So it's not just the ones that we have control over. You're exempting it from City of Baker, City of Zachary. And so I just want to make sure that's understood. And that's the impact on total. For the city parish, though, the general fund, it would be about 100% would be about 20,000, because our millages for our government are very small. So, I mean, we did, again, this is based on, too, like I said in the beginning, I don't know who owns a home here. A lot of these individuals did not want to disclose that information. So the 25% is impact on all is 300,000. So I don't even know if that's a good number. And I said that when I started this. This is just, employers do not feel comfortable disclosing locations of employees. They don't know if they own homes. And so, I don't feel comfortable certifying these numbers. Y'all just asked me to put something together to give you some kind of perspective. But I can't say that this is something I would even stand behind because it's just a shot in the dark.
Right. So I definitely concur with Councilwoman Adams, but also in thinking about when we have, and all the times that we have made concessions for first responders, it is not for their benefit. It has been for the benefit of the parish and their ability to serve. Because for me, it's unethical to carve out a particular profession for financial gain. When we have even introduced residential benefits, it has been for specifically law enforcement, so that lived out of the parish, but so that they would be, first of all, seeing a police car in residence within the parish or the city was just like having 24-hour security. Or it helped with the mileage of those driving in and out of the parish with police vehicles and fuel and all of that. It has never been where a particular profession that they chose benefited personally. And so for me, this isn't something that we should begin to even venture into, because for me, I'm a first responder. And because I was the first one to open the shelter for the flood, all of that. Pandemic, we were open 7 days a week, but I chose to do that. And there's no benefit other than goodwill. And we can't always, our whole city parish runs on the back of DPW. I've been saying that forever, but this isn't the way. And to add a financial burden that with no hard numbers, and then you have the opportunity where that some who we are being discriminatory, where we're almost saying, you to get this financial gain for yourself, you're going to have that benefit. And what if they could always put their parents' name in their house for that benefit? There's just too many unknowns, as you've indicated. And I think there are a lot in this short amount of time that are in Pandora's box that has not been opened. So as much as I love the fire department, and again, also on record of supporting them, this to me is unethical because it serves not at the pleasure or the benefit of the good of the entire parish, but for the individual professional.
Councilman Moe.
We'll let her have that few seconds back. I'll just go ahead and take from that time right there and go forward. But you're more than welcome to not recognize me like the previous. But
Councilman Moe.
Okay. Open that with a joke, because I'm sitting here trying to choke back, completely just going off the rails here, and I'm going to try and keep it as peaceful as I can. First of all, we're elected, we sit up here, we don't have so much time to say our piece and everything. You either say it or you hold it in for the rest of your life. I'm going to say this right now. As hard as our DPW workers work, as much as they do for this parish, as wonderful as they are for what they get, for being out there when we need them sometimes and everything, I resent the fact that you want to compare a DPW worker to a classified first responder that is a police officer, firefighter, or EMS that has to run into a burning building, that has to show up for a 24-hour shift, that has to be there for a so many hour shift of the police department, knowing that they're going to get called out and shot at every single time, that they could get shot out each time. An EMS worker that has to take someone that the firefighters drag out of a building and try and save their life, or unwrap them from a tree that they've been wrapped around in a wreck. To sit here and put other council members in a position to say that if we don't add DPW workers, and whether that's your intent or not, it's what it sounds like, that if we don't pass this because certain people aren't added in, that sucks, and I hate that very much that it even has to come up. We have other parishes around us that have passed this. They will deal with it. We will deal with it. We talk about it from an employment standpoint and everything, and we worry about that. What's going to happen when we don't do this and we're not getting the positions filled or anything right now? They're going to go to work for those parishes that they live in. Whether you know it or not, they're already going to places like Houston and Dallas on their 4 days off so that they can make money. They're leaving us now as it is. We're going to let all our other parishes around us do this. This is something that the state is allowing us to do. It could possibly be 1.3 million in revenue, but if it keeps our public citizens safe, if it keeps the employment rolls full, if it incentivizes people to come in and protect our parish daily, that have to show up every single time, then of course I'm all for this. And I would hope you would be for it also. But please don't construe that my argument here is neglecting or denying the hard work that DPW does. I know they do. I see them every day. I call them out when I need something. I know they respond. I know that they help deliver sand during emergency. And then they go home. That's not diminishing the hard work that they do. It's not diminishing what they assist with. But to compare them to the first responders that this law was created by the state for us to look at, I think it's wrong. And I think we need to focus on what we're supporting here and what we're doing overall.
Councilman Gode.
Thank you. First, I wanted to thank Kim Brooks. I had, whenever this came up in July, I had raised the questions about whether the definition was broad. I still respectfully disagree with her interpretation because the language says first responder shall also mean a full-time public employee whose duties include responding. So I asked Mr. Brian Eddington with the Assessor's Office to come to this meeting. He's an attorney with the Assessor's Office. Mr. Eddington, thank you if you'll come up. If you'll just kind of start with some of the input you've been able to provide me from your review of this legislation and implementation.
Sir, my name is Brian Eddington. I'm the Executive Counsel to the Louisiana Assessors Association. And the debate I'm hearing here today is the debate I've heard in other parishes around the state. And I will tell you, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but it's important to remember what you're dealing with is a constitutional amendment, and it is a matter of constitutional implementation only. Councilman Hurst, to answer your question, no, with all due respect, this council does not have the authority to grant an additional extension to this. Now, there is a question. It's a poorly drafted constitutional amendment, and that is what has led to problems not only here. I'm hearing these same questions from different corners of the state. It's important to remember, since this is a constitutional exemption, rules of strict construction apply, and that's why you're hearing the comments that no, apparently really only those enumerated categories tend to apply. I will tell you, there are several parishes that have voted no and petitioned their local representatives and senators to reintroduce this next year and try to expand it. There are parishes that have voted yes and also petitioned their representatives and senators. There is a compelling need to have some of the shortcomings addressed, but the problem is that is something that can only be done by the legislature with ratification of the people through a statewide constitutional amendment.
I'm grateful. Thank you for that input. I would also add in East Baton Rouge Parish, when this constitutional amendment appeared on the ballot in EBR Parish, it was not approved by voters. We had more no votes for this one than yes. Now, it was approved statewide,
Yes.
But I'm referring to just in East Baton Rouge Parish. So I appreciate it. Your input and assistance was really helpful. I joined that chorus of saying the language should be massaged. And I'll tell this council, I'm gonna support this, but under the guise that I'm confident the Louisiana Assessors Association will work with the legislature in the future to fix it. However, that path needs to go forward.
We intend to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Hudson?
Is it Eddington?
Yes.
Your discussion made me think of another question. If the legislature does go back and change it, will we need to go through this exercise again?
Yes, you will.
So we could look at this again.
It will, even if it's an amendment, it'll effectively be treated as a new exemption, which will require new action by the local governing authorities.
And so if we were not to do anything at that point, this exemption would expire and
No, it would just, to make an assumption, I think what you're proposing is if you were to vote yes in its current form, go to the legislature amends the bill, adds DPW or a broad enough definition that would encompass DPW, and for whatever reason, this council did nothing, the answer is that firemen, policemen, emergency response personnel would continue to have the exemption, but the DPW workers would not. It would not expire. It just would not be expanded or extended.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. So I'll just also echo the sentiments of Councilwoman Adams, but I want to expound on them just a little bit in that, certainly not that I'm some tax policy expert, but when I've looked at issues around taxes, generally my focus or the lens that I view it is that they are broad, fair, and low. And whenever you violate one or more of those kind of tenets, I think that's when we start to see problems with tax policy. This would seem to violate at least two of those for me. So that's my issue with it, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Hurst?
I'm bad with names, but the gentleman with the nice blue suit, Mr. Eddington, Attorney Eddington. So can you tell me what authority we have as a local body with our property taxes that we collect that go into our general fund? Do we have any authority at all to make any decisions on how we decide to move forward in terms of providing any concessions to members of a certain body of the city parish?
With all respect, you have no authority in that regard. It's purely a matter of constitutional implementation. Councilman Hudson comment about the basics of tax policy. I state the same thing, or say a little differently. That good tax policy is a tax policy that has the most people paying the lowest taxes. Uniformity is the watchword that assessors go by, and it's embedded in our Constitution, that any deviation from the general principle that everybody pays the same amount of taxes can only be done through a constitutional amendment, specifically Article 7, Section 20, or Article 7, Section 21 of the Louisiana Constitution. And, the unfortunate limitation is that power does not devolve to the local governing bodies. It's unfortunate. I think that I'm also a believer that the lowest level of government is often the most responsive, but that's just not, unfortunately, the way the system is set up.
I definitely appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. You have a seat. That's it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
I do have one comment that, and it's not an argument. It's an opinion, because the subjectiveness of what Councilman Moak specifically stated about DPW not being in a position and to somewhat, I don't think that was his intent, but I think the way that it came across was to diminish what they do in disasters versus what the police department, fire department, and look, Mike Denicola will tell you, man, I tell him all the time, I don't see how you go and see severed bodies and other things and then go home. Do your people have mental health counseling? So I am all for making sure that the people that respond daily have the resources they need. But again, during COVID, police officers had the same responsibility as DPW workers with no hazard pay. During storms, during any disaster, they constantly get looked over. So no, there's no comparison in terms of somebody going into a burning building and having to pull a gun on somebody. I mean, there's no difference in saying an EMS worker chose not to be a cop chose not to be a fireman. I'm not going to say that a fireman is better than a police officer or a police officer is better than an EMS worker. But what I will say is that people responding to disaster, whatever it may be, they're doing something. It's like saying the 3 branches of military, Air Force is better than Marines. They're still on the front lines for us. I don't care what department you go to or what branch of military. They're still first responders to protect the land we call the United States, right? And so in the city of Paris, when we start talking about local government in response, DPW has held their heads high a number of years for some of the lowest pay of all of them. And I consider those folks the forgotten people. So my only response is that it's not a comparison to say that one is greater than the other. Each department plays its role. What I want to happen right now is I want us to go back to 2016 and tell the police officers to go down the road without DPW going first, and let's see what happens. They put themselves on the line to drown, put themselves on the line in hazardous conditions that could affect themselves and not be able to take care of their families. They came here in COVID when everybody else was hunkering down. So, I mean, it's no comparison. You put yourself in harm's way. I don't care what the call of duty is. When everybody else gets the opportunity to sit at home, cross their legs, and watch Hulu and Netflix, you're a first responder to me. So I want you to know that there's no comparison. I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. I'm just saying that they deserve equal opportunity if we're talking about tax abatement or tax concessions for their property. That's all it was. And I hope it does pass at the state legislature in the upcoming session. I'll make sure to reach out to my legislator to sponsor it. Thank you.
Councilman Moak.
But it still comes out as a comparison, and however you want to put it. And you brought up a second ago that you took what I said a certain way, and it sounded like you took the intention that what I said was I was denigrating or downing DTW workers. I wasn't, and I said pretty much clearly stated that over and over. That I'm not diminishing their work, and I'm not diminishing that they did work during COVID. I'm not diminishing that a lot of people weren't out during COVID or working during COVID, whether they were working remotely or they were keeping the economy working, or the people that work at grocery stores because they had to be open for people to go shopping, or this, that, and the other. There was a lot of people that had to work during COVID. And if you want to specifically specify that area of whatever, police, fire, and EMS not only had to work during COVID, whether it was an emergency or whatever, or whether it's a natural disaster or whatever else, they're doing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's firefighters. They're doing it on a regular shift, whether it's an 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift through EMS, or an 8-hour shift through police department that rolls through 3 a day. That's every single day that they're putting their lives on the line. And like I said, by no means is it ever a downing to DPW workers. The same as finance that keeps the city parish running, HR that keeps the employees here that work tirelessly. Everybody that works for city parish does an amazing job. We've all seen it for the last 3 years of what they accomplish and what we do working together to keep this parish running. But this right here was targeted for first responders, a specific category. And to add into that, or to try and change that by not supporting this, I take offense to that. So I would ask that some of y'all that might be on the fence, let's go back to the tax thing and keep it fair and keep it low. I think it is fair. We constantly talk about ways to bring in public safety officials to keep those roles full. Everybody says, you see the postings online, you see everything else about, people driving down the street and a cop car coming up behind them, and get out the way because when they pass you, they may be going to your house. You just don't know it yet. They may be going to a family member's house or something like that. And they want those people there. Just like we voted earlier to give the Baton Rouge Fire Department an option to put an initiative on the ballot to let the people decide. This is the same thing here with letting people decide if they want to see their public emergency first responders get a tax break. And that's what we're doing today. And I ask y'all to support this for them.
Councilman Dunn Jr.
Thank you. At its simplest form, this is a recruitment and retention tool, recruitment and retention benefit for the city parish and for our first responders. When these employees are considering where they want to work and where they want to live, I guarantee this is be something they would consider with those parishes who do have this benefit. Will I work for them or will I live in that parish? And we need to be in the number to be able to offer that benefit. Recruiting and retaining employees and talent is a hard thing right now for businesses and organizations. I asked my colleagues to consider supporting this. My colleague, Councilwoman White, mentioned that she didn't think it was fair and equitable because it wasn't offered to everybody. Well, right now we're offered, those of us who are homeowners, homestead exemption. That's not offered to everybody. That's offered to homeowners. That's not offered to renters. Homestead exemption is offered to homeowners. And this is just an expansion of that that's offered to homeowners because of the investment that you make into a place when you buy a home. So every benefit is not offered to everybody, and that's okay. There are benefits to being a resident and a citizen of East Baton Rouge Parish. Some of our government and quasi-government agencies, BREC has a tremendous programs for the summer for kids and camps. Those camps are prioritized for residents of East Baton Rouge Parish. The Bridge Center, which provides, so many services for people. When that was put in place, we made sure that was prioritized for East Baton Rouge Parish residents. So yes, this is a benefit for East Baton Rouge Parish residents, those who live in East Baton Rouge Parish and those who work in East Baton Rouge Parish. And as it relates to first responders, any way that we can offer a benefit to them, a tax break, a pay increase for the work that they do, the times they put their life on the line, for many of us, I'm always in support of that. So I would urge my colleagues to support this item.
Councilwoman Rocca.
Councilman Dunn, well done. I am so happy that you're supporting our first responders today. Yes, sir. I have to say this for the record because I would be saddened to walk out of here without giving an explanation as to why I cannot vote on this item today. My husband is a first responder, and I live in the same home as him, so therefore I would directly benefit from a potential exemption that he may receive. I would also be very remiss to say that my husband and I spend probably over $10,000 in one home on property taxes, so this tiny drop in the bucket is not going to make or break the city in any way, shape, or form, and we're not going to be richer because we have this tiny tax exemption. But what I do need to state, and I think is very important because it's been looked over time and again through all the conversations that we've had as council members, and that is the simple term first responder. When someone lives within your parish and they get up out of bed in the middle of the night to go to a fire, to go rescue a person, or to go to a shooting for an investigation, usually the ones that live in your parish or in your city limits, they're first. You know why they're first? Because they live where they work. Okay? So that makes sense to me, and I can't understand why it doesn't make sense to anybody else. The other piece that I think we've also missed, which is incredibly important, is our firefighters, they go into burning houses and expose themselves to asbestos. They have severe respiratory illnesses later in life. They have cancer later in life. They cannot, when they leave city parish and they go and live their lives after they retire, they can't get insurance the same way we all can. They can't get life insurance the same that we all can. So when we're making those important distinctions between what a first responder is and how their lives are different than ours, I think it's very important to note that there is very important distinctions that travel with them through their lifespan. The other piece is our police officers that go out and respond to these things, that I can tell you, I passed the hub in my district, and there were somewhere close to 7 or 8 BRPD officers there earlier this week. They never know if they're coming home, okay? They don't know if they're getting shot. They're wearing Kevlar vests. They're in 100-degree weather doing their jobs. Their PTSD that they have after they've completed their jobs, it goes with them for the rest of their lives. So please just keep those things in mind whenever you're casting your votes and you're talking about first responders, because the impact isn't while they're here and while they're doing their jobs. They carry that with them for the rest of their lives.
I agree with a lot of what's been said. I actually understand the arguments on both sides. I feel like oftentimes I like to see any opportunity to lower people's taxes, let them keep more of their money. I think that's a positive thing. I think the legislature saw it necessary to start that with first responders, and I think that's a great place to start. So often we see property tax is where it's the trough that everyone always goes to for taxes. It's always going to the property owners. I would say any scenario where we can lessen that is a positive thing, understanding that taxes are necessary, and where they are necessary, I think if we can wash them from property tax and find it somewhere else, I'd be in favor of that, because again, it's always going to the property owners every time for this, and non-property owners vote for those too. And when we have more and more non-property owners, they'll have no problem passing them at that point. So I think, again, the legislature saw it fit to start this, and I'm saying start this because they may very well bring something for DPW. I'm biased. My wife's an educator. I think educators should be looked at in something like this too. You talk about people who put a lot of time in and aren't compensated well for it. But again, the legislature saw it fit to start with first responders, and I can't think of a better place to start with this. And so I'd be happy to support seeing them have a little bit lower tax bill for those that are here. It was talked about as a potential retaining and recruitment tool, and I agree with that. I think I'm pretty sure all of our surrounding parishes have already adopted this. So that's something I think to look at when you're talking about just in the moment right now. If our surrounding parishes have done this and we haven't, that's how people leave if they want to seek it elsewhere potentially. So I think we need to try to be in like kind with them, and that's where I am on it. Councilwoman Amorosa.
As well, that I'm going to have to abstain. My son is a first responder. We do share a home together at this moment before he gets married in December. But anyway, y'all have all heard all of it. I don't need to sit up here and report to y'all what they see. He's a paramedic, and he has come home with some horrific stories of things that he has seen. And right now he is working out of town because he just cannot make the money here in East Baton Rouge Parish that he absolutely well deserves, because he's been at this job for a very, very long time, and he's got skills and does things that I guarantee you that 99.9% of us that are sitting in this room today are not willing to do. He has dealt with people that have mental issues, with drug addicts, with bodies that have been burned. It just, I mean, I could go on and on and on. So, yeah, you know, people do give a lot, but our first responders, they're born for this. They are absolutely born for these jobs, because we don't want to do these jobs, and we're very, very grateful. So I did want to explain, though, that I will not be able to vote for this this item. Thank you.
Motion to approve, Mr. Pro Tem.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Coleman, second by Councilman Dunn Jr. We're going to vote on the machines.
May I have one last minute? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And not to pour on it, but I also want to mention that if you look at it statistically, and even recently, one of the firemen passed as a result of suicide. And what you find with first responders, because of what they see on the day in and day out, is that many times after they're on drugs, they're doing alcohol, suicide, depression, all of those post-traumatic characteristics. So, you know, again, you know, it is no comparison. I think we've said that and we've proven that case, but nevertheless, this isn't how we will remedy that, and I definitely ready to vote.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Coleman, second by Councilman Dunn Jr. to approve. We're going to vote on the machines.
Machines are open on the motion to approve. Motion carries.